In 2010, Krista Branch's song I Am America became a hit with many conservatives. Today, Krista Branch is back with a new song and a new album, Calm in the Chaos. The album Calm in the Chaos will be released at Glenn Beck's Call for Unity event entitled Never Again Is Now on 8/28 in Birmingham, Alabama. 100% of the funds raised for the song Calm in the Chaos will go to help save the lives of Christians fleeing the brutality of ISIS in the Middle East.
Calm in the chaos, still in the waters.
And welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of Stand for Truth Radio. This is a special edition called Knowles on the News. I'm here to talk to you about current events and issues of the day. Please make sure that you check out all of our podcasts for Stand for Truth Radio and the special editions of Knowles on the News. You'll find them at Spreaker.com, or you can download our app and take us with you 24/7. That's Stand for Truth Radio on Spreaker.com. Well, by now you've all heard of the horrible tragedy that took place in Roanoke, Virginia, where a young 24-year-old female reporter was doing what they call a puff piece about tourism in Roanoke, Virginia. And she was interviewing a lady, and her cameraman, a 27-year-old male, was filming everything, and all of a sudden gunshots broke out, and you can hear the screams of the young lady, Allison Parker, who was running away and trying to get away from the shots that were being fired and that eventually killed her. You could hear her screaming and yelling, oh my God. And apparently she and the videographer did not survive. Later on, we discovered that supposedly a disgruntled employee attempted to kill himself by shooting himself on the freeway, but we're told now that he is in critical condition, and that is at the taping of this show. He's in critical condition. Who knows that if he will indeed pass away or continue to live. It's really a cowardly act that he did, and he destroyed the lives of two young people and the lives of their families. I mean, there has to have been a better way as a disgruntled employee that you could handle things rather than killing two innocent people and then trying to kill yourself. It absolutely makes no sense. And, of course, the Democrats wasted absolutely no time. I mean, the suspect had not even been caught, and the Democrats were out calling for gun control. And specifically, Governor Terry McAuliffe of Virginia was once again out amongst leading the crowd of gun control. I mean, we're no longer looking at personal responsibility in this country. We immediately go to the object. It's like when you read a lot of times in these reports of accidents, it says the SUV ran over so-and-so, or the SUV crashed into the building. Let me just tell you something. 9 times out of 10, when an SUV crashes into something, it's because somebody was driving it. Now, there are occasions, I know, when somebody leaves the brake off and they get out of the car and the car rolls and it crashes into a building or something else. But the point is that we have no personal responsibility. We always look to blame something else, and we always look to further our agenda. And by that I mean that there are a lot of individuals, of course, who don't like SUVs, and so the first thing that they want to talk about is what the SUV did. You know, we've got to stop doing this. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that we have no personal responsibility. We look to blame others, and we look to further our agenda every single time a tragedy happens. And I don't know about you, but I'm noticing like every day more and more tragedies that are happening. We need to stop what we're doing. It's not working for us. It's not working for anyone. We need to start looking at the mental illnesses that are taking place within our country that we're just not willing to look at. And we're not willing to look at it because we're just so willing to look the other way or look at something that an inanimate object and blame that. You know, and people keep forgetting that you can kill somebody with things more than a gun. It can be other types of inanimate objects. So, Democrats, we understand what your agenda is. You want to get rid of our Second Amendment rights. It's not going to happen. You're not going to do that. You can take away all the rest of our personal freedoms, and you're working really hard at doing that. But you're not going to have people surrendering their guns. I can tell you that right now. And every time it becomes an election year, you try more and more to just, spew out your agenda onto the public. And it's really getting tiresome. Why don't you become part of the solution rather than part of the problem? Stop looking for things to further your agenda and start looking for things that can actually solve issues in this country. I mean, it's time that we put politics aside and start becoming realists. We have to look at what's going on. We have to, as members of this society, become more involved, looking at our family members that may be in need and trying to get them help, friends that may need to be seen by a psychotherapist or psychologist or some other person and trying to get them help. Or getting your church involved in helping people, whatever the case may be. But let's not wait every time until after the fact and then, as the Democrats do, start yelling for gun control. It is just absolutely ridiculous. They know it, we know it, everybody knows it, and it's getting really tired. And because of political correctness, nobody wants to talk about it. Well, political correctness has gotten us to the point that we're in right now. We need to look at these people who are going out and committing these crimes and figuring out why they do these things before they do them. You can't tell me that somebody who goes out and kills 2 innocent people, allegedly, doesn't have some type of issue that he or she is dealing with. Something that was perhaps recognized by someone. And, we can't put blame on other people. I can tell you, if you're in a family with somebody with mental illness, it isn't so easy to walk up to somebody and say, hey, I really think you need to see somebody. You and I both know that there are people with mental health issues a lot of times aren't willing to go and be seen. Sometimes they don't even realize that they have an issue. And family members sometimes don't want to get involved in it because it creates conflict within the family. Well, we need to start putting that aside. We need to be compassionate, and we need to get help for people. We can't just keep doing the same old thing, turning our backs, forgetting about it. It doesn't solve anything. And we also need to quit blaming the psychologist or psychotherapist after the fact. Oh, well, why didn't you know, and why didn't you do something? Trust me. As somebody who is a licensed psychotherapist, you can be in therapy with someone, but if they don't want to tell you what's on their mind or that they're planning on hurting someone or, how they're feeling, if they're not being open and honest, there's nothing you can do about it. We're not mind readers. We can look at people and maybe assess that they might have some issues, but until they open up their mouths and actually say something in regards to what would be a Tarasoff warning that I would be or somebody else would be responsible for calling the police, there's nothing that you can do. And to go back and try to blame everybody else, a psychotherapist that maybe sees this person on a weekly basis or maybe once a month, and to hold them responsible when there are family members and friends who know them intimately well. Those are the people that need to step up and do something. And it's not going to be gun control that makes a difference. It's going to be people stepping up, people taking responsibility. Now, I want to let you know, too, in an upcoming Stand for Truth radio that will be Monday, August the 31st. I really hope that you will listen that night. It's at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. I have a very special guest that's coming on. His name is Attorney Benjamin Krause, and he is going to be talking about the VA and veterans issues. I've wanted to do a show like this for a while, and I just wanted to find the right person who was an expert in the subject that could come in and really talk to us about what was going on. He's an award-winning veterans rights attorney and a journalist who investigates government fraud, waste, and abuse within the Department of Veteran Affairs. Now, I've talked to a number of veterans about him, and they each tell me the same thing, that this man is the real deal, that he has stepped up and helped a lot of people, a lot of veterans, and he's very compassionate and involved in all of this. And I think what is especially good about Benjamin Krause is that he is also a disabled veteran of the United States Air Force. And he served there as a Special Operations Command, and he received a dishonorable discharge, and he fought with the agency for 15 years to finally win his benefits. So here's a man who has not only been put upon his heart to help veterans, but he himself has gone through this, and he knows what it's like to be disabled, try to get help from the VA, who said that they would do what they can to help veterans. You know, this has been going on since forever when Congress stepped up and said, you know, we need to help veterans. But yet we see time and again veterans are still not being helped. And I know from as a child up to the age I am now, I have seen one instance after the other at how bad the VA hospital comes across when it comes with dealing with veterans and their issues. My father is one example who served in the Korean War, who had a hearing loss, who tried for years to get help with the VA. And each time they told him, sorry, no can do, you know, we're not going to help you, you'll just have to live with it. And my father had just this horrible hearing loss. And so eventually, you know, we just gave up with the VA because it just seemed like there was nothing that we could do to get the VA to help my father. And so I went to the Lions Club to ask for a donation on his behalf to get hearing aids that he had needed most of his life. And they were kind enough to give him the money to get those hearing aids. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous when somebody serves in the military and they can't get the money. And I understand, you know, the VA is like a lot of businesses. You know, they're in the business of saying no because, you know, here you have this government money, you know, our money, but money nonetheless that these people are in charge of. We have all of this money and they want to keep it. So when somebody says, hey, I have a hearing loss, you know, I have this disability, I need help, their job, the way they see it, is to keep that money and do everything they can do to say no. And I've heard from other veterans, you know, that they go in and they file a disability claim, and usually they're rejected the first time. A lot of times they're told, no, you know, you didn't sustain this during your service. I've had some that have told me that they've been told that they weren't even in service or in that area, like in Afghanistan, that the VA has said, no, you weren't even there. There's no proof that you were even there. Sheesh. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And so they prolong it, hoping, just like with my family, that the veteran will just go away and that the problem is going to solve itself because you're just going to give up. And I think veterans today have just reached a point where they're saying, you know, we've sat here, we've sacrificed for this country willingly, and we've seen other people get the care and the treatment that we're supposed to get. I mean, how many times? Perfect example in Southern California. You have illegal immigrants who come in and are given benefits in the hospital for free that veterans, if they tried to do that, they wouldn't be able to get it. So, I mean, how ridiculous is that they're veterans, they've served in the war, they're citizens of America, and yet the VA says, no, sorry, you're out of luck, we're not going to give it to you. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, it means a lifetime of suffering in pain. And for a lot of people, it means never getting to go back to, at some point reasonably, to the point that you were before you went in and served. And that's ridiculous. And far worse are those that have PTSD from what they've seen in their service of protecting the United States, and they're told, you're fine, here, take some pills, and in fact, take a lot of pills. I mean, I've talked to veterans that were on, a multiple amount of medications at one time. And some of those veterans, unfortunately, that have been in so much pain, just give up the battle and kill themselves. And that's ridiculous. We can't have that. We need to do something about it. And I think that Benjamin Krause, he's going to be an excellent guest. He's going to be talking about a lot of different things, cases that he's personally involved in, and a lot of things in the news concerning veterans and the VA. And I think very much it will be worthwhile for you to listen to it. And a lot of times I know veterans are familiar with the issues, but what you have to understand is that a lot of people out in the general public are not. We're not told that type of information. And I don't know if you know this, and I'm just learning this myself, and it was really kind of shocking to me. I've been told that the VA has their own PR arm of the VA, where they do everything that they can to keep this type of thing out of the news. And they get a lot of money to run this PR campaign, if you will, to keep the public from knowing what's happening. It's ridiculous. You can tell that this administration does not have the focus of the VA. They haven't, the Office of Inspector General, they haven't replaced the person that left, and it's not a priority. And we've seen from this administration that our military in general doesn't seem to be priority. So it's high time that we get out and we start talking about this, and we spread this information as far and wide as we can. So I'm hoping that you do listen to the show. I'm hoping even more that you will invite everybody you know to listen to the show. And I'm hoping that after the show that you will, take these podcasts of the show, tweet it out, put it on Facebook, email it to everybody you know. Get that information out there. Benjamin Krause is one attorney that, from what I understand, has helped a lot of veterans. But he's one person. He needs help in getting the information out there. If we sit quietly by, the public thinks that a couple of years ago, hey, this big scandal came out about the VA and everything's okay. We haven't heard anything else about it, so everything must be okay. Well, as you know, and as I find out when I talk to veterans every day, it's not okay. It's far from being okay. When you're waiting 17 years for some of these people to try to get benefits, come on, how ridiculous is that? And trying to get to a civilian doctor, I understand, in this Veterans Choice program, is even worse. And then the doctors, when you do get to see a civilian doctor, some of them aren't getting paid. Clearly, the system is broken. Clearly, something needs to be done. And we need to keep this in the public eye. We need to keep talking about it. So I hope, again, that you will come and listen to the show. You can go to my website at SusanKnowles.com. Click on the big Listen Live button on Monday, August the 31st at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. It's going to be a show that is going to be jam-packed with information that we need to get out there. And while we're talking about veterans, I did a piece for The Blaze, and it's up there at theblaze.com/contributions. It's called 3 U.S. Marine Veterans Heroically Fight the Islamic State. There was only one news channel that I saw that even mentioned this story. We so just forget all the good that goes on in our lives, in our country, and the good that people do, especially our veterans and our military. And again, I hope you go and you read this story, and if you like it, that you tweet it out. Get it out there in social media. We need to keep veterans in the public's eye and keep them in the public's focus. It's too easy to go, oh, well, they're just doing their jobs. We don't need to think about it. We do need to think about it. Now, here's a family. And in my opinion, this family is a hero. And here's how I define hero. My definition is someone who carries out a selfless act above and beyond what they're obligated to do. And in the process, they exhibit courage far outside of what normally is expected. Now, the dictionary has a little different definition. It's more simplified. It's a man of distinguished courage or ability, admired for his brave deeds and noble qualities. Well, whichever definition you choose, in my opinion, there are at least 3 men who truly epitomize what it means to risk life and limb for a noble cause and deserve the title of hero. And they deserve to be talked about. They deserve to be known. And they deserve our prayers and perhaps any donations that they need and the people they're fighting with to do the job that we're not doing. Now, the 3 men, they don't want to give out their last names. Obviously, we can understand that for security reasons. But Harry M. is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, a civilian police officer, and a staff sergeant with the U.S. Army National Guard. His son Josh is a 29-year-old veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps and a former gunner who served 2 tours in Afghanistan. And finally, his brother James, 23, who also served 2 tours in Afghanistan as an infantryman, hard to say, in the U.S. Marine Corps. And they've all decided that they're going through with doing something instead of just sitting around saying, gosh, I don't like that. Gosh, I wish somebody would do something about it. They're sick and tired of doing nothing, so they've decided to do something. And they have decided as a family that they're going to go over and fight ISIS. They're going to turn the tables on the terrorists. I mean, how many people do that? I can't say that I would do that. But when you have people who are willing to do that, we need to talk about it. James said, ISIS has threatened our nation and us individually. They came out and have said every military member needs to watch out because we're coming for you. We are Marines. We're going to fight. We're going to bring the fight to them. Don't you just love that? I love Marines. They don't sit around and wait. They just go in there. Now, Harry, the dad, said, every day we're not there, people are dying. I know I can make a difference. I know he can make a difference, and I know he can. As he's referring to Josh, or Josh actually said this, and he's referring to James and his father, Harry. Now, they were asked also, and you're going to love this, they were asked, is there any message that you want to give to America, that you want to convey to America before you take up arms and go do what our government should be doing, but obviously isn't doing, at least not well at times? Well, I'll give them some benefit of the doubt. So before they go and take up arms against the Islamic State, I was touched by the fact that each man had their own reasons for why they were going. Harry said, I think one thing that is important to try not to get wrapped around the edges of why we are doing this. Try to understand that there are men in this country who are willing to go one step beyond and confront whatever threat is there, whether here at home or overseas. I love my country. I love the ability to debate. I love the ability to worship as I want. I love the ability to pursue happiness, and I'm willing to put my life on the line, not just for this country, but for complete strangers. Now, tell me that's not a hero. And I know he would not probably want to be called a hero, but I don't know what you call that if it's not a hero. How many of us would be willing to put our lives on the line when we don't have to? It's one thing when you join the military and you know what your job is going to entail. These people, they don't have to do that. They served already in the military. They've done their time. They don't have to go back. but they're heroes. They're patriots. These are true Americans. And we're just silent about it. I mean, we'll talk about the Kardashians all day long and how brave Kate is and how she should get an award for being so brave. But what about these men? And again, they're not asking for anything. They're not asking for an award, and they wouldn't take it, I'm sure. But we need to be the ones who stop talking about the Kardashians long enough to talk about these three men who are putting their lives on the line for us and for the people who are being absolutely slaughtered over in the Middle East. The Christians. People every day. We're not seeing that much about it in the news because, gosh, we've got other things to talk about. I'm sure Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are doing something new today, so we really have to focus on that. Now, James said, I want them to know that we are not out for bloodlust. We are out there to protect and serve, and not just serving the United States, but people, humanity, being a good person. We have the capabilities to protect others, and that is what we are about. My gosh. Whew. That just gives me chills. As an American, I can't be prouder, when I hear things like that. As a Christian, I can't be prouder, when I hear people who say things like that. When you think that your country is lost, that you don't recognize your country, these are your fellow countrymen that really made and continue to make this country great each and every day. And again, these people need to be talked about. Now, Josh explained something, I think, in really simple terms, why he's going. And I didn't include everything he said because what he said in the beginning was just perfect. And I wanted to leave it that way. But he said, I'm an American, and this is what we do. This is what I do. Oh, my gosh. Brings tears to your eyes, I mean, seriously. This is the America that we all know and love. This is the America that we remember. The one that 8 years ago seems like a lifetime away, but 8 years ago, this is the America that most of us knew. And it was even changing 8 years ago, but it definitely has changed in that 8 years, where the people that we were no longer those people as a majority. But there are people like these three men, this family, this father and two sons, who are going and risking their lives when they have absolutely no obligation to do so, except for the fact that they follow a God, listen to their hearts, and know that they're here to serve others. To me, honestly, again, heroes. These are the people that we need to hold up and be talking about. Now, I recently, I don't know if you caught my last show, but I had G.M. Davis, Greg Davis, author of House of War, Islam's Jihad Against the World. It was on my radio show. And I asked him to explain the beliefs of those, like the Islamic State, who follow the teachings of what President Barack Obama has referred to as a religion of peace. I asked him to explain all of that and to talk about this religion of peace. He studied political religions and totalitarianism and received a PhD in political science. And he had something really great to say in regard to that. He said in his book, Islam is indeed a religion of peace, and here's what is meant by that. Islam seeks the subjugation of the entire earth under Islamic law. When Islamic law becomes universally triumphant, peace will reign. Therefore, Islam is a religion of peace. That the peace of Islam presupposes the destruction of non-Islamic civilization is surely more than a technical point to the infidel. He further explains that, basically it's time for Americans to realize that the Islamic State and their beliefs are one of violence that is called for in the Quran. He describes their beliefs more as a political system with religious aspects rather than simply a religion. And he talked about it's a system of government where there can only be one winner, and that winner is not us. That winner is the Islamic State and Islam. Again, those people that are willingly walking into a known dangerous situation without any obligation to do so other than a sense of duty to protect Americans and those who are being slaughtered by the Islamic State in a foreign land is, in my opinion, one of the most selfless and noblest acts that anyone can do for another human being. So if you will, again, please go and read that article on The Blaze at theblaze.com/contributions and send that to everybody that you know. Let them know that we value our military in this country, we value our veterans in this country, and that they deserve recognition of who they are and what they do selflessly every single day for this country. Now, also, you probably know, in turning to other news, that Joe Biden is still considering running for the presidency. I mean, gosh, he got the blessing of Obama, and he is ready to go. And I don't know how much of it we could actually handle, but some people say, gosh, I hope that he does run, because it would just be a comedy of errors, literally, and it would be so great to hear that. But I don't know about you, but I don't know if it's amusement or amazement whenever he talks, but I don't think I can take 4 years with Joe. I just don't. I don't know if you can remember, one of the things that Joe said was, this was a long time ago, I think before 2008, somewhere around in there. My mother believed and my father believed that if I wanted to be president of the United States, I could be vice president. So clearly I don't know if he's confused about it's two separate offices. You know, I'm not sure. But at least his parents think that he could be one or the other. Or maybe you remember the first campaign rally when Biden was introducing Obama. And he said about Obama, "A man I'm proud to call my friend. A man who will be the next president of the United States, Barack America." I know. You just can't believe some of these. But and I know you probably don't. How could you forget his not too politically correct mention of different ethnicities when he said, "You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent." I'm not joking. And, you know, he says these things, and, of course, the Democrats say absolutely nothing. Like, oh, gosh, I understood exactly what he meant, and there was nothing wrong with that. Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine 4 years and God forbid, 8 years of that? You know, it's one thing when a vice president doesn't get it right, but it's quite a different thing, you know, when you have a president and he's not very presidential and they get it wrong. But, you know, I guess he could also take up golf. Maybe that would help. I have an article also on The Blaze, and it's called "Run, Joe, Run," but you'll have to do it without Elizabeth Warren. And again, it's at theblaze.com/contributions. He met with Elizabeth Warren over this past weekend, and I'm sure that the Elizabeth Warren fans, I mean, and I don't think people realize, they say, well, Elizabeth can't win because she doesn't have a good backing and good following. I think if you believe that, you underestimate the senator. Because at the very beginning, before this, you know, campaign election time came around, they had a website set up already called Run, Warren, Run. And I'm sorry, I'm just laughing at that because it just reminds me of Forrest Gump every time I say it. But they had a petition out trying to get her to agree to run as a president. And she got, like, right away, 365,000 signatures. And I'm talking right away, saying, please, please, Elizabeth, you know, please run. And I'm sure when they heard that she and Joe were talking, that they would settle for Vice President Warren if they had to. anything to get her in, in hopes that maybe Joe would, retire early as president, and the vice president Warren could take his place. I'm being sarcastic there, but I mean, anything is better than nothing, I think, with these people. And I'm sure that if Biden went there to ask her to be his vice president, should he run, he may have come away disappointed. And the reason I say that is, there's a cult of personality surrounding Elizabeth Warren. It's a phenomenon. I mean, these people love Elizabeth Warren more than they love the air that they breathe. And they would do anything to have her in power. But I don't think Elizabeth, and I could be wrong about that, I don't think Elizabeth is going to be second seat to anyone. And she said she's not going to run for the president. I continue to say I'm not sure about that. If Joe can get in this late in the game, if that's what his decision is going to be, then why couldn't she? If Hillary continues to do poorly, and, Hillary, I tell you, Hillary's like a cat. For whatever reason, she seems to always end up on her 4 feet. I know Hillary doesn't have 4 feet, but the cat does. And she always bounces back. I mean, here we have one email scandal after another. I don't know about you, but the email scandals, Benghazi, you name it. You and I would be sitting in jail right now. And she's still out. Why criminal charges haven't been brought, who knows? But again, she always ends up landing on her feet. So she's either got the luck of the Irish or money from someplace else. I'll let you decide which one it is. So, again, Elizabeth Warren, there are people who think that she's right about everything. And I can't see her saying, gosh, I'll just take a back seat to Joe and I'll be the vice president. Now, maybe she might think, well, I can do that, and then in 4 years, I'll just run for the presidency then, and people will know me, and they'll know how wonderful I am because I'm such a left-wing progressive. Everybody will just love that. Maybe that's her strategy. But I think that if she were to run for vice president with anyone, it would be Bernie Sanders. Because they are both socialists. I mean, you can't get... They're socialists. I'm sorry. I was going to try to sugarcoat that, but you can't. They're just socialists, and they're proud of it. But their philosophies are more similar than Biden's and Warren's are. So perhaps she might run with him. And Bernie Sanders has said, I've talked to her numerous times. Now, I think he may have said that to make it look like, Joe's not anything special. I've talked to her too. And it doesn't mean just because she's talking to Joe that she's going to be his vice president. But, if he decides to run, he's clearly going to have a vice president from someplace else. And he's been meeting with other people, too. He met with a husband and wife that are pretty close to the Obamas. And he met with a former White House communications director and an Obama attorney. So he definitely is thinking about, should I do this? What should I do? Should I just sit it out? But I can't just imagine somebody saying, oh, Joe, you will be amazing. You should do it. Just be all in, Joe. Be all in. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't think that I can stand to watch all of these, I'll call them close encounters with Joe, where he's kind of putting his hands on women especially, getting really close, whispering in their ears, and the women looking extremely uncomfortable. But I don't think I can stand it. I know it would be hilarious for some parts, but that's just a little bit too excruciating to watch. Now, As for what he's going to do, maybe he's just going to throw his support all behind Hillary Clinton instead of himself. Or, because it's Joe Biden. Now listen, hear me out. Because it's Joe Biden, maybe he'll ask Hillary to run as VP if her campaign doesn't go as well as it should. Because maybe, it won't matter so much if she's in the VP slot rather than running for presidency. Now, hear me out. Again, if you think I'm kidding, remember what Biden said about Hillary's qualifications in 2008? Does anybody remember that? He said, again, God love him, here's another hilarious statement by our vice president. Hillary Clinton is as qualified or more qualified than I am to be vice president of the United States of America. Let's get that straight. She's a truly close personal friend. She's qualified to be president of the United States of America. She's easily qualified to be vice president of the United States of America. Quite frankly, it might have been a better pick than me, but she's first rate. Now, I don't know. So maybe people would agree with Joe. Maybe we should have picked Hillary over him. I don't think so. It was hard enough watching him for 8 years. I can't imagine what it would have been like watching her for 8 years, and I certainly don't want to think about the possibility of watching her for the next 8 years. Again, there are people out there who once again are talking about how Donald Trump may make this a possibility because if he doesn't get the nomination for the GOP, then he's going to, and he's basically said it, clearly going to consider running as an independent. And if he does that, it's going to split the votes, and it's going to guarantee that we have Hillary for president. Now, I know that's the latest gloom and doom of the Donald Trump campaign, but I don't think that you can dismiss him so easily and say that he's not going to get the GOP nomination. And I know people who don't like Donald Trump aren't very happy with that. But for whatever reason, Donald Trump is stepping up there. People are interested in him. People are putting their faith in him. And you may not like it, but that's what's occurring. I've told people all along, if you don't like Donald Trump, why do you focus so much attention on him? Why don't you instead convince people of how great your candidate is? But sitting there and talking about Donald Trump and how horrible he is, when he's speaking really for the American people, speaking things that they wanted to say, but just haven't, because of political correctness or whatever, haven't felt that they could say it. So, people, the more you say bad things about Donald Trump, the more they're going to defend him. The more popular he is going to become. And maybe that's your goal. Maybe you truly do like him and you just don't realize it, and you're trying to help him to the top because you're doing a really good job. It's working. He is continuing to do well in the polls. Now, there was a poll out the other day that said with Hispanic voters, he's not doing so well. I don't know that I believe that poll. I think a college may have done it. Some university may have done that poll. And it said that, Jeb Bush, maybe there is a Jeff Bush somewhere, but Jeb Bush, Mr. I speak Spanish to impress you, is at a plus 11 with Hispanic voters. I think Cruz is at a plus 5. And Donald Trump is like a minus 50 or something like that. I mean, it's really pretty low. According to Donald Trump, when he talks to Hispanic voters, they don't feel like that at all. And I know that I have talked to Hispanics, Latinos that are in America, and, they all tell me, now maybe they're not telling me the truth, but many of them tell me that they don't want people who are here illegally to be moved up in front of the line and take their place or the place of their family who's trying to come here. They don't think it's fair. And I think that the media tries to get us to believe that Hispanics just want everybody here, and they don't care if they have to move aside. If somebody else gets in front of them, that's okay. It's for the cause. I think that we're looking at it incorrectly. Again, you have to look at who's doing these these polls. And I would say for anybody, I don't care what poll it is and who's conducting it, do your own research. Again, I don't think you can believe too much of what you see these days on the internet or anyplace else. People have agendas, and they're pushing their agenda, and you need to be the one who sits there and figures it out. And again, I know they have time constraints, but you have to stop believing everyone else and start believing your own gut, your own research, and what you've found out on your own. We're in a critical time period here. We really are. We're being fed a lot of information that's propaganda. If you call it what you want, I'm going to label it propaganda. We have people who want nothing more on the GOP rhinos than to have Jeb Bush get into office as president. They don't care how it's done. They'll bring out Karl Rove and he'll talk about how great Jeb is or whatever. Whatever it takes. They don't really care. We can talk about the progressives on the left and how bad they are, but the GOP rhinos, they're progressives as well. And they have an agenda, and they're going to work it, and they're going to do whatever they can. And I sit here and I wonder why some of these people, like Lindsey Graham, why is he still running? Why is he still in the campaign? Some of these people need to get out. They don't have a chance. They need to just go. They are clouding up the field. We need to get right down to it, get to the serious people, and everybody else just needs to step aside. And Donald Trump right now, again, whether you like him, don't like him, think he's going to ruin the country, whatever the case may be, he is here, and he's here for the long haul. Unless the American people get sick of him or he does something that is so outlandish and so ridiculous that the American people turn on him, he is here to stay. So again, if you have a better candidate, you had best get out there and start telling people about that candidate and stop focusing on doing what you can to destroy Donald Trump. It's not working. Now, even the media, you saw that the other day on Univision. The guy who stood up, is a reporter, can't remember his name, and I think his last name is Ramos, but he stood up and he wanted to start, what I hear, he's an activist. So he wanted to make his point. Oh, what are you going to do? You're going to take these people and line them up with the cops and get them out of here? I mean, it just, whatever. And he kept interrupting and interrupting. This was at a press conference. He wasn't called upon. He stood up. The media has been allowed to do what they want to do, which is mostly remain silent. That's what they've been allowed to do. But they've been allowed to just, no decorum, do whatever you want, whatever feels good. We need to get back to a time in this country where there are rules. People need to follow rules, and rules are made because there are reasons to have them. It's called decorum. It's called courtesy. It's called reason. Ugh. So Donald Trump, like him or hate him, he's like, no, you haven't been called. It's not your turn. Next person. And he eventually, because this guy just kept, I have a right to, no, you don't have a right to say what you want at a press conference. If you want to call your own press conference, and you can stand there all day and say whatever you want. But this is Donald Trump's press conference. Just like with these Black Lives Matter people who are interrupting every Bernie Sanders press conference. And what does he do? Steps aside, allows them to talk. Again, I go back to simple facts. If you're a parent, you understand what I'm talking about. If a child starts to do something inappropriate behavior and you allow them to do it without stopping that behavior, it's only going to get worse. And Bernie Sanders is setting the example of, if I have a press conference, all you have to do is come in, sort of shove me out of the way politely, and you can have the podium. I'm not going to do anything. Kind of his social justice approach, I guess. Like, you don't get this opportunity, so I'm going to give it to you. And Donald Trump is saying, no, enough is enough. You don't have a right. This is my press conference. If you want to speak at your own, go right ahead. Now, he did bring him back in. and he was allowed to ask his question. I think that's really great. If he hadn't brought him back in, that would have been, big news. Oh, Donald Trump keeps, Hispanic reporter out because he hates Hispanics, spreading the lies again. So he brought him back in, and he says, go ahead, ask your question. So what happens? The guy asks the question and then just keeps talking because he really doesn't want to hear what Donald Trump has to say, or any other candidate for that matter, but it just happened to be Donald Trump. He doesn't want to hear. He just wants to make his point. He's an activist. He's not a reporter. He's an activist. He wants to say whatever he wants to say and make his point so that you, the listener, can go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And without giving Donald Trump a time, an ability to answer. But Donald Trump kept saying, excuse me, and just kept talking, finally shuts up the reporter and says what he wants to say. And I mean, it's ridiculous that we've come to that point in the United States where we just don't have respect anymore for anything. It seems, especially when it comes to the media. I'm not generalizing, but when it comes to the media and having press conferences, we just don't have an ability to know the rules, follow the rules, and a lot of that is because the only rule that's been for the last 8 years is the president and Josh Ernest, or and whoever is talking for the president at the time, they're going to have the floor. You're going to get a chance to speak if you ask the questions we want you to ask, and if you answer the way that we want you to answer. And it's only recently that the press has stood up and said, we're not going to take it anymore. But my thing is, where were you 8 years ago when you should have been doing your job? It's a little late now to stand up and make a stand and take a stand. And it's one thing to take a stand when you're being pushed down, when your rights are being violated, when your First Amendment rights are being violated. But Donald Trump was not violating anybody's rights as a reporter to stand up and ask a question. All he was saying is, if you're going to ask a question, you're going to be called on, and then you're going to go ahead and ask that question, and then let me answer it. And by bringing him back in, he proved a point. This isn't anything personal, but I'm telling you, this is the way that this is going to be handled. I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to let you do whatever you want so that you get your point across and you don't let me get my point across and you try to make me look bad. Not going to happen. Now, in the last few minutes that we have, I do want to go back to one of the original stories that we were talking about, and that's the shooting that occurred in Roanoke, Virginia. The man who allegedly shot the two, Vester Flanagan, who went by the name of Bryce Williams as a reporter, is the main suspect in the shooting of a television reporter and cameraman who were shot to death on air during a live broadcast Wednesday morning in Virginia. And he appears to be an African-American male. They say that he has Bay Area ties. I don't know what significance that is, but I guess he's originally from Oakland, and he supposedly shot himself Wednesday morning after allegedly gunning them down, and then posted the video of the killings on his Facebook page. No telling, what this man's motives were. Maybe these two people had been put in his place and he was angry about it. I have no idea, and I'm sure we'll find out as time goes on. Well, I guess the police officers found him in critical condition in a rental car along Interstate 66 hours after the shooting. And he, it's such a sad and tragic situation. And I'm sure we're going to find out more as time goes on. So you'll have to just, keep abreast of that as the days go on. A little bit on the background information of him. Supposedly he's a person who attended the University of San Francisco, it looks like. San Francisco State University. And under the name of Vester Lee Flanagan II, and she said he graduated in 95 with a degree in radio and TV. This is from a San Francisco State spokeswoman. He worked as a customer service rep at Pacific Gas and Electric from 2001 to 2002, according to a LinkedIn account that he had. He started as a news intern for KPBI KPIX TV in San Francisco in 1993, and later given a full-time staff position as a production assistant and weekend news writer. So again, we don't know what happened with this person. Somebody there said that he was an unhappy man. He had a reputation for being difficult to work with. So apparently some of that difficulty has played out today in such a tragic and horrible way. Our hearts and our prayers go out to the families of the victims. I still haven't heard about the woman that was being interviewed. Last time I heard a report on her was that she was in surgery. So again, I don't know what has happened to her, but certainly this whole day and this could have been dealt with a different way. We all know that. And why this man allegedly chose to do what he did, we'll have to just wait and see. My guess is that it may have been something against these two reporters specifically who may have gotten a job that he felt that he should have had. But we have no way of knowing that, and it's all supposition on my part at this point. And finally, we really need to continue to stay on the top of this Iran deal. I think by now everybody knows that this deal is in no way good for America, and it's no way good for Israel. And I think that is becoming clearer and clearer. I mean, when you have information coming out about the fact that these Iranian inspectors can inspect their own nuclear systems and, to see if they're in compliance, there's a problem with that. Why we went in there and gave up everything remains a mystery, I think, to some people that they don't want to talk about. But it's clear that this cannot, in any way, shape, or form, be in our best interest. And if you feel that same way, too, you really need to talk to your congressperson. If you have to call them every day, write them every day, whatever, get them to reconsider if they're considering voting for this. And I know that I think it was Chuck Schumer that came out and said that he's against it. He's a Democrat progressive. So if he's against it, it must be pretty bad. And there was some other movement that was going on. I don't know how successful it's been, but they really wanted to get a petition signed that said that Congress had to read everything about the treaty and know all of the facts before they sign on to it. But again, there are some aspects of it, my understanding is, that are, only certain people are able to know what's part of that agreement. And that's absolutely absurd. We've been dealing with half truths and not knowing anything in this country and being told about it later after the fact, or you've got to read it to know what's in it type thing, but let's sign it first and then you can read it. Absolutely has got to stop. And again, I know I harp on Donald Trump, but that's what people like about Donald Trump. He's telling it like it is. He may not be a legal scholar and a political mind, but that's some of the things that people like about him. But he's at least trying to turn some things around, and the American people are very receptive to that. And I think he's going to, keep on being that way unless and until something happens, something that he does himself, that he steps on it himself. It's the only way that people are going to start backing off of him. So I hope, again, that you will listen to the show on Monday night. Going to be great. Benjamin Krause, an attorney, a disabled veteran himself that helps other veterans, is going to talk to us about the VA and about the cases that he's worked on, things that he's doing in order to help the veterans. There's a lot of things coming out about veterans. There's a campaign right now out called The VA is Lying. They're trying to ask for donations to get people to donate so they can put up signs of that effect, billboards saying the VA is lying. If you have Facebook, just go to The VA is Lying, and there's a whole group that has over 9,000 people. You can sign up there if you're interested. Until then, until Monday, God bless you. We'll see you on Monday. Again, make sure that you tell everybody about this show. And after the show, go and get the podcast at Spreaker.com and look up Stand for Truth Radio and spread it to everybody. If you don't, if you remain silent, nobody's going to know about anything. The veterans aren't going to be helped, and there's nothing that we can do to help them other than to spread the word about what is going on. So please take the time to do that. Please take time to listen to the show. And please take care of yourself. Until we meet again, God bless you. Have a great day. And tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. Because as we all know from today, time can be short and we don't even know it.